Every morning, soft mist floated across the hills like a drifting blanket, and the rising sun painted the rooftops in warm golden light. Wind chimes hung from wooden balconies, singing gentle melodies whenever the breeze passed by. One bright morning, Lena placed her straw hat on her head and stepped outside her small wooden house. She carried a little basket filled with apples her grandmother had picked the night before. As she walked along the cobblestone path, butterflies fluttered around her like living petals. The village was slowly waking up. Bakers opened their wooden shop doors, farmers prepared their carts, and cats stretched lazily in patches of warm sunlight. Lena waved to the villagers as she passed through the marketplace. Wooden stalls were filled with fresh fruits, bread, and colorful flowers. The air smelled of honey cakes and warm tea, but Lena's curiosity was already pulling her somewhere else. Beyond the last row of houses stood an old forest. The villagers called it the Whispering Forest. Tall ancient trees grew there, their branches stretching high into the sky like quiet giants. Many people said the forest was magical, but few ever explored its deeper paths. Lena stopped at the edge of the forest and looked inside. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating dancing patterns on the mossy ground. Tiny glowing spakes floated in the air like drifting fireflies. Then Lena heard something, a faint rustling sound. She stepped closer. From behind the thick trunk of a moss-covered tree, something small peeked out. It was a tiny creature, round and fluffy, with big shining eyes and soft glowing fur. The little spirit blinked at Lena curiously. Lena blinked back. Neither of them moved for a moment. Then the small spirit hopped lightly onto the forest floor. It tilted its head, as if inviting Lena to follow. Lena hesitated for only a second before stepping onto the narrow forest path. The deeper she walked, the quieter the world became. The sounds of the village faded away, replaced by gentle forest whispers and the rustling of leaves high above. The tiny spirit moved ahead of her, glowing softly in the dim forest light. Soon, Lena noticed something unusual. The ground around the path was dotted with glowing mushrooms, shining gently in shades of blue and gold. Fireflies drifted lazily between the branches, lighting the way like floating lanterns. The forest felt alive. After walking for a while, Lena reached a small clearing. A crystal clear stream flowed through the middle of the clearing, its water sparkling like liquid glass. Birds perched along smooth stones, dipping their beaks into the cool water. Lena knelt beside the stream and gently touched the surface. The water was cold and refreshing. The tiny spirit floated nearby, watching her with bright curiosity. But the greatest surprise waited just beyond the stream. As Lena stood up, she noticed something enormous rising from the center of the clearing. It was a tree, but not just any tree. This tree was enormous, its trunk wider than the village bakery, and its branches spreading across the sky like a green umbrella. Carved into the massive trunk were tiny wooden balconies, little staircases, and glowing lanterns. It was a treehouse village. Warm golden light shone from small windows hidden in the bark. Lena's eyes widened with wonder. Then the forest began to stir. From behind roots, branches, and leaves, more tiny spirits appeared. Some were round and fluffy like the first one. Others were small glowing orbs. A few looked like floating clouds with tiny eyes. They gathered around Lena, curious but friendly. One of the spirits spun through the air like a twirling leaf. Another bounced happily across a tree root. Soon the entire clearing filled with dancing glowing lights. The spirits began swirling through the air, moving like a magical breeze. Their soft glow filled the clearing with warm colors, and their laughter sounded like tiny bells. Lena couldn't help but laugh too. The moment felt like stepping into a dream. Time passed quietly as the sun slowly moved across the sky. Eventually, the golden light of sunset began to filter through the tall trees. The spirits gently gathered near the path Lena had entered from. It was time for her to return. The tiny spirit who had first greeted her floated close and gave a small cheerful hop. Then it began guiding her back through the forest. As Lena walked along the glowing mushroom path again, the sky above the trees turned orange, pink, and deep purple. Soon the forest grew thinner. The sounds of the village returned. And when Lena stepped out of the forest, she saw something wonderful. The entire village was glowing with lantern light. Colorful lanterns hung between rooftops and across the village square. Villagers had gathered for the evening festival, laughing and playing music as warm lights flickered in the twilight. Children ran across the square carrying paper lanterns shaped like stars and animals. The smell of sweet pastries and roasted corn filled the air. Lena walked slowly through the festival, smiling quietly. She looked back toward the dark forest at the edge of the hills. For just a moment, she thought she saw tiny glowing lights watching from the trees. The forest spirits were still there, and now Lena knew their secret. From that day forward, whenever the wind rustled through the forest trees and the lanterns flickered gently in the village at night, Lena would smile, because somewhere beyond the hills and hidden paths, the whispering forest was still alive with magic.